Guys, I'm audible. Wonderful. Right. Yeah. Thanks, Arvind. I've started that. Okay. Right. So yesterday, I think in the Azure class, I have said that. Okay. We will be evaluating what are the different features that are provided by SQL Server, MySQL, and Postgres at a service level. Okay. We'll be looking at SQL Server instance, and then we will look into what this Synapse and analytics is and how to deal with Oracle and cache databases. What are these cache databases and how do we figure it out? Okay, so let us get started. Yes, I have started, Harish. Thanks. Okay, so I have also said that ensure that you have Azure SQL Server created and MySQL created. Okay, so if you have already created that, good. If you have not created that, please do it. Okay, even at least when you are practicing. If you are evaluating what has happened in today's class, please create it at that moment. So I have a resource group called as databases, and in this database I have created all the databases. So for example, I created a Postgres database, a MySQL database, and an SQL server. Okay. All of the locations I have chosen East US. Okay. There was no special reason, but the first server was East US, so I wanted the rest of them also in the East US. That's it. Nothing more than that. Okay. Right. Fine. So let us look into what are the different features that basically we'll see for SQL database server, and then we'll come back to this. So let me come to SQL server, SQL database first. Okay. So okay, Azure SQL database. Okay, we have definitely seen some features. Okay, I'm not looking into anything which is in preview mode, so I'll not speak about it. But I'm quite sure that we have spoken about the configure geo replication, what these connection strings are, and how do you sync to the other databases. Now, let me speak about this feature, Azure Search. Where is this? Okay, so Azure Search. Right. Let me try to speak about what this Azure Search is all about, and where do basically Azure Search is widely used, and all of this stuff. Okay, right. Okay, guys. Right. So let me save this. Scale 60. Right. Guys, am I audible to you? Because Shabir is having a problem with audible. So am I clear? All right. Okay. Fine. So, if you basically want to understand this first feature, okay, Azure, this is now called as cognitive search. Okay, cognitive. Okay, cognitive search or Azure search. This is basically what it is. What this service is basically all about. Okay, right. Right. So it is very simple. It is uh, search as a service. It is search as a service. Initially, it didn't had a lot of what do you call lot of cognitive features. Now, basically, Microsoft has given you this idea of for searching the data with respect to your application. With respect to your application. So basically, what will happen with respect to your application? So let me not draw it. Let me use Azure's image itself. There is something called as Azure Cognitive Search. Okay, I'll not get more into this, but this is for the people who come from the dev background. So Azure Cognitive Search. Okay, right. I'll stick to here because this is used by your dev community. Right. This is the image which will tell the whole story for us. So this is your database or data or whatever it is. And now what we would try to do is we would try to make this data available to the cognitive search, which can be queried by your application. Which can be queried by your application. So, for example, this is kind of an intelligence which you are giving for your application, right? So this is used in your data searching or analytics kind of solutions which your applications develop, and this is used by your developers. That's a basic feature around it. So I'll basically give search as a service solution. Okay, for applications. Yeah, search as a service solution for applications, right? To search the data using the Azure Cognitive, okay, which provides, okay, standard or artificial intelligence enriched indexes. Indexes for your application. Okay, so you might use it or you might not use it. Okay, but the whole point is this is where the Azure search will come. Okay, so if your developers are doing some kind of POC, they might ask you to enable it. That's the only thing which you might end up doing. Okay, right. So that's fine. Right. I'm interested in this area. I'm interested in this area. This especially this area. Okay. Intelligent performance. Okay. Right. This is where SQL has a lot of advantages. Okay. So as a DBA, what one of my major responsibility would be, okay, to performance tune or tune my application, to tune my database. Okay. So we have to basically look out for intelligent performance. Okay. Intelligent performance. What is this? Okay. Set of tools provided by Azure, okay, to monitor or help in tuning the DB performance, tuning the databases performance. Okay, so this is basically what it is. This is basically what it is. Okay. Now, if you look into this, are you seeing there is some performance overview and all of that stuff? So I'll click on this performance overview. Okay. So it says that at this moment, I don't have much of performance data, and it is giving you recommendations. Okay. So you can basically it will give you some of the recommendations. Okay. So whenever you execute any queries, it will try to give you what is your query's performance. So the queries which you have been running, it will try to tell you what are the long running queries, and you can customize your period. So trying to see for whenever your application's database is consistently running, what are the different things which you would basically see. For this helps a lot for your database engineer, right? So right now there is not much because we have not actually executed it. So query performance insights. Okay. So here you can get long running queries, you can get resource consuming queries, and then you can create your own custom queries over here. So to monitor the performance of your queries. Okay. So when I say monitor the performance of your queries, it might not be databases queries that your DBA executes. It might be the queries that get executed when your application is used by your customer. When your application is basically used by your customer. Okay. Right. So 61 and 62. Yes. Right. Okay. Right. And then, okay, query performance insight. This is provided by all the databases. These insights are nothing special. They are provided by all the clouds basically. Okay. Provide the information about, okay, resource consuming queries, consuming queries, long running queries, okay, and custom queries. Custom queries, okay, about the following with necessary information, okay, to tune the performance. Okay. And then if you are using basically SQL server, okay, or SQL database, Azure also provides something called as automatic tuning. Okay. So that is an option which I was basically very much interested in. So are you seeing this automatic tuning? So if I basically enable this, so are you seeing inherit from Azure defaults, do not inherit and all of that stuff? Okay. So if I try to inherit the force plan and all of that stuff, okay, create index, drop index, if I basically enable all of these settings, what happens is Azure SQL Databases inbuilt intelligence will automatically determine what is better for you. So let me save this. This is something which is there only for SQL Server. Okay. So 61. Okay. Right. This is 63 and this is 62. Right. Okay. Now let us go and look into the same thing. Okay. What I'll try to do is I'll try to open a new tab and let me try to see the same options in the other databases. So what are the other options which I'll basically get when I go to MySQL server or a Postgres server? Okay, so I'll go to MySQL. I've created a MySQL server. So scroll down. Okay, here you okay. So when it comes to intelligent performance for MySQL, you are seeing only two options. One is performance insights and performance recommendations. Whereas when you look into the Azure, you will get a performance overview, you will get performance insights, performance recommendation, and automatic tuning. So this is because Microsoft has a closer control when it comes to SQL Server. When it comes to SQL Server, right? Yeah. Right. Okay. So let us see what is in there for Postgres. Okay. MySQL options. Okay. And remember, these options might change next year when you see the same page. There might be some new features added or new databases covered. We might not be able to basically tell that these are the only set of features and they will stay the same throughout the stuff. So come over here. Same thing for Postgres as well. Okay. So okay. Same thing for Postgres. Okay. Right. Right. So with Postgres, can I do automatic tuning? The answer is no. But it is not available. It is not available. Okay. So SQL Server has a rich set of features when compared to other databases, right? So let me go to the settings. Okay. So there is no add to Azure Search over here. Okay. So there is no add to Azure Search over here. Okay. Yeah. So if you basically look into it, there is no add to Azure Search. So there are some features which differ from database to database. Okay. And I'll not be showing you all, but I'll basically try to tell you enough so that you would be able to basically work out the stuff. Okay. Right. So fine. Right. So whenever we basically try to work out for any database, okay, what are the different things which you can do? You can basically do the performance insights and all of that stuff. So when it comes to the Postgres, you can create a replica. You can create a replica also, right? So, but the replication works differently when it comes to MySQL, Azure MySQL. Okay, so Azure MySQL has a different way of replication, but what do you call? In the case of Postgres, it is pretty much straightforward. It is pretty much straightforward. Okay, right. So Azure replications, when it comes to what do you call? It supports for MySQL two kinds of replications. One is called as data replication. The other one is called as read replication. One is called as data replication. The other one is called as what do you call read replica. Okay. So basically, to create a read replica in Azure portal, you can do it easily. So let me try to show you how to do it. I'll not do that, but I'll think I can give you a link to the stuff. How to create read replica. Azure Database for MySQL. I want Microsoft's documentation itself because that will be the better option. Okay, okay, okay. So, okay, right. Replication options. First one is MySQL. Okay, refer here. Okay, how to create read replica. Okay, so where is the documentation? Yeah, good. Okay, so if you basically go over here, it will try to show you all of that stuff. Okay, but understand one thing: replication. You have to basically follow this whole documentation, and you have to. We are missing. You should also be looking at for all the prerequisite information which it is asking for. So read these two stuffs. Okay, and the next thing which you need to look into for MySQL is there is something called as data input replication. Okay, right. So data in replication is synchronized database from external sources into MySQL. Okay, so you have a database in your office and then you want to sync it. So in Azure we have said that there are data sync agents and all of that stuff. Those sync agents will upload the data to your Azure SQL server and all of that stuff, right? So I'll give this to synchronize the data from external MySQL servers into Azure MySQL. Okay, right. So this is basically what it is. Fine. Good. So basically this is the replication options when it comes to MySQL. Okay. Postgres is relatively simple. Okay, because it gives you all the options at one place. Okay. Postgres, I'm giving you an image. Okay. Replication. Add replica. Right. Okay. So you need to know these options. That's the reason why I'm trying to tell. At least you should know the options. There is no need for you to do this. You will have DBA help and all of that is correct. But still, you need to know the stuff. You need to know the stuff. Okay. Right. So when it comes to performance tuning, what will you do with respect to MySQL is you will basically use the query performance indicators and from that you would basically try to use the stuff to tune your database. Same thing goes with Postgres. Okay, but when it comes to MySQL SQL Server, you can go ahead and then you can try to basically give an option of automatic tuning also. Right? Okay, fine. So there is one option which I'm not speaking right now because that option will be dealt separately. That is called as disaster recovery and backups. So how do you take the backups of the databases and how do you configure the backups, right? So how do you restore? This we will deal it in a generic way because we are going to start that topic immediately after this. Okay, so that is not only for this, but for majority of the services where we are basically going to access the stuff, right? Okay then. So right now, let me go back to SQL Server. Okay, SQL Server has this interesting feature which they call it as dynamic data masking. Okay, so what is this dynamic data masking? Okay, so basically, okay, um, I'll try to tell you how should I put it. Uh, okay, so let us assume that you are trying to have a database in SQL Server which has social security number, and then you don't want that data to be visible to your users who generally use it. Okay, so what you would do is, okay, this is very much required for the people who work in healthcare industry and e-commerce and all of that stuff. Okay, so you would basically go with adding the data mask. Okay, right. So dynamic data masks. Okay, right. So I'll be using images. So I think you would be able to make out from images because adding text for that will be very time consuming for me. So for example, you have uh, any kind of data which is secure, which is sensitive. So you would basically say that I want to add a data mask. Okay, then it will ask, okay, you want to add a data mask for what? For in which table? So do you want to basically, are you looking out for some particular table? Okay, are you looking out for a particular column? Okay, so right now I don't have much of columns, but I'm basically trying to show you the options, right? So you can create a mask. You can create a mask, okay, so that you can hide dates. Okay, so when I say you can hide dates, this is for viewing, not for your application. So credit card values will not be shown, email IDs will not be shown. Okay, so if you want any custom string padding, you can do it so that your data is not lost, right? Some of the users who are basically might not have a problem, might not view the data in the way how they look at it, okay, normally when you keep it open, so this is one of the feature which is used, okay, especially if you are having a sensitive data. So that's where this data mask comes into play. So you have to select the schema. Okay, so for example, I'll try to use this customer, and if you look into email address, so I can put the, now if I say add a mask, so basically what would happen is whenever email address for this table and for this record, there will not be any what do you call no one will be able to look into the data of it. That's basically what it is. Okay, so I can do more. So let me add one more mask. Okay, so I'll select sales. Let me try to give what else? What are the other masks which we have? Okay, date. Fine. So I'll still select customer. Is there anything which we can get from this customer? No. Let me try to choose another stuff. Product. Okay. Okay. Something like cell start date, whatever it might be. So here I'm trying to tell that this is my mask. Now here what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to add a mask rule saying that now no user will be able to see what is my start date and what is my end date. Okay. So for example, I've chosen some table. I've chosen this and I've chosen this, and then I'll be basically clicking on this add. Now, whoever views that data, they will not be able to see the data directly, but they will be seeing the data in a dynamic format, which will be masked. That's the whole idea of dynamic masking. Okay. 67, 68, and then 69. Alright. Okay. So, fine. Right. So, basically, yeah, we have loads and loads of features when it comes to Azure SQL Server. Okay, obviously that is quite a easier way to look into it. Okay, but when it comes to SQL Server as MySQL and Postgres, you might not have as many features as this. But when you compare MySQL, whatever we have in Azure, with any other MySQL on other clouds, you will have the same set of features. Okay, but when it comes to SQL Server, it is quite intuitive. Right. Okay. Fine. Now let me go back to home. Okay. Now look at SQL Server. Okay. If I get into SQL Server, okay, right. So if you basically look into SQL Server over here, you can enable the intelligent performance at a server level itself. Okay. And you will not see data mask at a server level because data mask is a database kind of a concept, right? But you can enable something called as advanced data security, where Microsoft will be ensuring that your data is not data is not lost, or all the possible vulnerabilities are enabled by Microsoft itself. They will try to give you the stuff, and encryption is quite simple. You have to basically tell what is the algorithm, what is the key which you want to use to encrypt your data. So you can go with a service managed key. If you don't like that idea, you can give it your own key. So if you click on customer managed key, you have to go and create something called as Azure Key Vault, and then you have to select a service. Okay, so this is your way of doing encryption. If you want to encrypt the data on your own, let it be in any database. This data encryption is supported in all the databases, right? So then you would be using this customer managed key, but service managed key is where Azure will try to use that key, right? Azure will generate the key and use the key. If you don't trust Azure, then you can give your own key. Okay, this could be a key that basically you generate. Okay, and then you can give an identifier over here, or you can use a service in Azure which is called as Azure Key Vault, and then use that service to basically encrypt and decrypt the data. That's basically what it is. Right? So obviously every database has to have some kind of auditing. So that is where you will have this auditing information. So what auditing and logs, we will deal that stuff separately. Okay, but the whole point over here is, in databases we have loads and loads of features. Okay, when it comes to SQL servers. Okay, right. But there is one more thing in Microsoft which comes up all the time. So they might tell that I have something called as, you might have heard this, MSBI. I have SSRS reports. I have SSIS functions. Okay, these are the Microsoft's business intelligence kind of a solutions. So what Microsoft is trying to do right now is, okay, for all the MSBI, now they are calling it as Power Platform. Okay, so they are trying to support. Okay, they are trying to support this Power Platform, or let me not do this. Okay, Power Platform. Okay, so this is basically BI based platform. You can develop some apps and you can create some flows. Okay, so I'm not getting into what those things are because that is altogether a different topic with respect to um, Microsoft product lines. But okay, one thing is okay, Power BI or Power Platform support is added to SQL database. Why I'm writing this specially? What is the significance of this? Okay, so generally, okay, we will be learning server migrations, and whenever we do server migrations, okay, we try to choose something called as SQL Server Managed Instance. If you remember, we have discussed that managed instance feature earlier. Okay, so SQL Server is of two types. One is where you have a managed instance, and the other one is SQL databases. In SQL databases, there are two kinds of stuffs. One is single, the other one is elastic. This is what we have spoken, right? So now, if you look at what this SQL Server's managed instance is, okay, SQL Server managed instance. Okay, right. So, right. This option creates a MySQL server, which is exactly like the SQL server, okay, on premise. Okay, so for example, there will not be much of difference, right? It would be much like the SQL servers which you are used to. Okay, so SQL server managed instance will be created in the virtual network. Okay, will be created in the virtual network. So if you remember, Azure SQL Database creates all together in its own network, and if you want to connect it from your system, you have to basically use okay some kind of endpoint concept, and we have spoken about public endpoint and private endpoint. Okay, so but when it comes to SQL Server managed instance, okay, this is your network, this is your VNet, okay, and then okay, SQL managed instance will be in your network itself, okay. So this, let me call it as web subnet, this let me call it as DB subnet. Okay, this let me call it as DB subnet. Now if you remember, in the Azure databases, the things work out very differently. Okay, Azure SQL databases, basically what would happen, your database will be somewhere else, this is your application. Okay, if you create a private endpoint, an interface is basically created. Now you are trying to speak with the database, which will stay, or which will be present in your own network, so this I am writing it as connection string. Okay, so if your organization wants to basically use it, then what will you do? So for example, this database should be used from your office. Okay, should be used from your office. Okay, so let me call it as on-premise. Okay, so in on-premise you have some application. Okay, so let me call it as in on-premise I have an application which also wants to use the same database. Then what will you do? Okay, then you will go for okay the VPN kind of a connection. Okay, between your organization. Okay, and this network. Once you have established the VPN connection, then basically the data flow will be your application will go through this VPN, and from here it will connect to this database. Okay, this is if your applications are on premise. Okay, so this is what a managed instance is. And as I said, managed instance is equivalent to your server which you have installed in your office. So if it has SSIS, SSRS and all of that stuff, we would be using this stuff itself. Okay, right. And one more stuff. Okay, where is that it is majorly used? Okay, okay. While during DB migration, okay, we initially create SQL managed instances and then okay try to use SQL databases. SQL databases. Okay. This is basically what you do. So initially your database, whenever you are trying to do some kind of monitoring, will always be the SQL managed instance when it comes to migration. Okay. So is there how can I create this SQL server managed instance in a database? So let us basically look into it. Okay, I'll show you. Okay, since we have created everything, let me create this one also. Okay, so I'll go to all services. Okay, and then Azure SQL. No, no. Let me select Azure SQL. One minute. There should be some one interesting thing that appears over here. Let me see. Yeah, good. Sorry, saying. Okay. So this is what we know. Okay. These are basically SQL virtual machines and SQL managed instances. Okay. So these are basically added for support in databases. Right? So let me do one thing. Let me basically show you. Okay. So let me show all the options. Okay. Go to Azure SQL and then click on add. Okay. Generally, we will not manually create it, but still, if you want to, then this is how you end up creating. So, in the deployment options, you have the stuff. So, if you have any existing images, then you can basically go. This is virtual machine. This is basically the virtual machine. Okay. This is used if you are trying to use a database which is very much older. Okay. Right. So, right now, you basically say that I want to create an SQL Server managed instance. Okay, right. Okay, now you click on create. Okay, right, and most of the things would sound the same. Okay, from here I don't see much of a difference. It would be much like creating a virtual machine. So I will not enter all of them. Okay, but okay, or let me see if I can. Okay, right. So let me try to give a screenshot which consists of all of this. Good. So now you select a resource group, right? You give a name, you select a region, you configure the size. Okay. So, so right. Yeah. Yeah. And then you give username and password. So let me give something. Select a resource group, databases. Okay. I know it is not visible. So, right. Okay. I'm sorry, man. I think there is a lot of this UI is okay. Enter the managed instances name. Qt managed. Okay. And I'm selecting East US because all the others belong to East US. That's the only reason. Okay. Configure instance. Okay. This is much like vCore model. Okay. I want a general purpose. Okay. If you go with general purpose, I want only one core machine. Okay. So are you saying that this way? The reason are you saying I don't want to create the machines, okay, which will cost you more. So I basically created 64 GB, okay, and then I'll click on apply. I don't want to shell out this much of cost. I don't want to shell out this much of cost. Okay. So but it starts with minimum courses for. So this is a minimum bill which you will get. So we don't have much of option. That's the reason why I'm not creating it. Okay. Yeah. But the only thing which you have to do after that is apply. Okay. So give some name. Okay. I'll do everything, but I'll not create it. Let us see. Okay. Password must be 16 characters. Oh man. Why they are not matching? Man. What will be the password which will be 16 characters, man? So let me try this. Uh, okay. Right. Next, if you see it is asking in which network do you want? In which network do you want? And what will be your connection? So do you want the connection to be redirected or do you want the connection to be proxy? Okay. Do you want a public endpoint for the database? Generally will not go for a public endpoint. Then it is asking you all the databases options, and if you want to configure the failover, you have to do it over here. Click on review and create, and then click on create. Okay. But right. So it is a very time taking activity because this is a huge server which will try to create. So I'm not creating that. Okay. Right. Okay. But if you want a virtual machine, you don't want a database, you want a virtual machine, then you can create it from here. Okay. This is a virtual machine and this image will have a database which is already installed. a database which is already installed so that you can start using it. Right. So $71, $72, $73, and then $74. Right. Fine. So let me stop it at that, and then let me try to look at next topics. Let us discuss about NoSQL. Let us discuss about cache, and let us discuss about data warehouses in Azure. So, right. Okay. So today I think I've spoken a lot, but these are all important. These are all required for you to just make a distinction. So there is no need for you to remember all of this, but at least try to find out where you can try to understand where you can find this information, because this information is always changing, and this information is always basically there will be new support that is added. But generally, whenever you do server migrations, the initial stuff which would always come back is the first server which you will create while as a result of database migration is always a SQL Server managed instance. Okay. So these are the questions which I got. Yes, Mani, I'm trying to speak about it. Is there any difference between SQL Server and MySQL? They are two different database engines, right? So SQL Server is one product, and MySQL is altogether a different product. Okay. Yeah. SQL Server is from Microsoft. MySQL comes from open source community, which is now taken over by Oracle. Yeah. Right. Okay, guys. So I think I'll delete this database group. So as I said, whenever you are dealing with databases, please be very careful. Okay, because the charges of the databases are little bit on the higher side. So don't forget to delete the databases. Okay. So I'm deleting the whole resource group. Alright. Okay, so there is one more question which basically tries to speak about SQL VMs and SQL managed instance. What is the scenario? See, for example, you don't want a database. You want to have a virtual machine so that you can log in into that virtual machine and have a closer control. See, right now, whatever we are trying to do is we are trying to look at platform as a service. Okay, you will get a database. On top of the database, you are trying to install the stuff. If you don't want that, if you want a virtual machine with Windows operating system and SQL server, then it is VM image, right? So generally no one goes with VM image until unless you have a special case. Okay. Synaptic Analytics, sir, if you have looked at these options, okay, data warehouse is what a Synaptic Analytics is. Okay. And cache I have already written it. So please go through the whole notes. I've written the next topics. I'll speak about it tomorrow, right? Yeah. We have planned, but this discussion has gone more than what it should actually look at. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. SQL VMs is not a pass. Okay. But if you are looking out for a platform as a service, okay. So SQL VMs is SQL database and managed instances are platform as a service. And when it comes to SQL images or SQL virtual machines, they are not platform as a service. They are virtual machines. So they are infra as a service. Right. So you will not get a lot of benefits there. Okay. Right. Okay, sir. Then I'm stopping it at that. We'll meet again in our next class where we try to understand about CI/CD today. All right. And I would expect that everyone from this classroom is also attending that. Okay. Thanks.